Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Ben from One Cast Fishing. Obviously today's video setup is quite a bit different. I'm upstairs in my studio. I got the white lights, I got the multiple cameras here. I'm not in the boat, I'm not in the water. That's because it's winter time. You know, it's cold out, it's rainy, it's windy, it's snowing. Those up north, you've got ice on the water. We don't get to go bass fishing like we would like to. Come 4 to 6 weeks from now, most of us will be in pre-spawn mode or maybe even spawning, and we'll be able to get out in that water and do a lot of fishing. But until then, wintertime is a great time to do some real maintenance, or actually maintenance on any equipment, but today we're talking about real maintenance. So I'm going to break down how I go about cleaning my reels to get them ready for the season. Hey, so for today's video, I'm going to break down this Diawa Tatula here. Now, truth in lending, this thing took a swim not very long ago. I am thankful to have it. Same with the rod, but it's probably got a little bit of water inside, so that's also the reason why I'm doing this video, so I can clean it up, make sure it's ready for me for the season, at least in the next few weeks as tournament season starts. Now, when you're going to clean your reels, make sure you lay out everything you're going to have handy. You're going to be dealing with a lot of small parts. So first thing, obviously you see this brown towel right here. That's just to catch any dirt, any grease, any lube, so it doesn't mess up my table here. It doesn't mess up anything fall on the carpet. You know, a lot of guys just lay their parts when they take it apart in the towel. I like cutting out a piece of plywood or 2x4 scrap wood so you can lay your parts on it as you break them down. It's a little easier to see on the wood, and it's also just a hard surface there to lay on. But again, it's personal preference. Make sure you get your oil, reel oil. This is Penn Precision Reel Oil, also Penn Precision Grease. Both those are really good to use. Got cotton balls. Well, those aren't cotton balls, but I got plenty of Q-tips laying right here, and I've got some cotton balls as well. Those will help me assist me in cleaning and drying this reel up. And then obviously you need to have your tools. So make sure you got your screwdrivers that you need. Make sure you got your pliers, scissors, anything you need to break this thing down. And also have your schematics on hand if you have it. If not, pull it up on a PDF from the website from the manufacturer. So if something does go a little bit off or you're trying to figure out how to put it back together, those schematics can help you out. So the first thing I'm going to do when I break down a reel is I'm going to take off the side plate here. Each reel is a little bit different. This one, I'll take my screwdriver and I'll screw off the screw here, flathead screw. And that goes on this side plate on the magnetic brake adjustment here on the Diawa. So obviously you just unscrew that and then pop that thing off. And yeah, there's a little bit of water in there. So it did get a little bit wet. When you do that, you can then pop out your spool. So you got your spool, and yeah, it's a little wet. One thing I did forget. I tape down my spool before I even take it out. You tape it down, that way you're not going to have a line laying out all over the place. Obviously each reel is a little bit different, but however you open it up to adjust your brakes is usually how you're going to open up to pull that spool out. Let's set this one aside here, the rest of it. So then I've got the side plate up here. I'm just going to take a cotton ball because this thing's a little wet. Now I'm just going to dry this thing up, take up any of that excess water, pull up any of that gunk there. Now you will need to be careful with the cotton ball because it can leave little strands of hair behind. That's when you can go behind it with a Q-tip, and usually we get all that stuff out. So what I'm going to do here with this side plate, I'm just going to take a Q-tip. I'm going to run all around it. Obviously there's water in this one here, so I'm going to try to get all the water up, but also all the gunk and everything. Make sure it's just dry. So I got that thing nice and dried up there. Next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and dry up the spool here. And because the way it's shaped, I'll just take a paper towel. That's too easy to do. Got a jig here I don't really need. Put that in the ground. Anyway, I'll just take this paper towel and I'll use this to clean up any of the water that's on here. Again, your reel shouldn't have water in it, but if it does, you can clean it up, especially after it's been raining or something. And then you can just dry it up, and there may be some gunk or grease on there, you can take that off too. Paper towel works really good here. Little spot you can't get with a paper towel, Get in there with the Q-tip. Yeah. That looks pretty good with the spool. On the Daiwa, what I'll do is I'll unscrew the cap here. Make sure you get the right screwdriver. And I lay these out of how I take them out. So the first piece I take out, this screw, is the far left. And then the cap for that, for the nut, will be right next to it. And I'll just lay everything in a line. Everything will be laid out exactly how I take it off. So that way I do not forget. It's the easiest way to do that. So what I'll do is I'll break down the entire reel here. And keep in mind, on most reels, the top right is screw when you're looking at it. So if you're looking at it like this, right, opposite, the top right will usually be a little bit shorter than the others. Just make sure you put the right screw right back in the right hole. If you want to do it clockwise, counterclockwise, if you have a specific way, just make sure the way you take them off, make sure you just put the right screw back in the right hole. That side plate will come right off. Oh yeah, there's quite a bit of water in there. Turn that upside down. And because there's quite a bit of water actually here for this taking a lake, I'm gonna have to break it down a little farther than I like. Take off the sleeve, and take off the gear there, and I'll break it down all the way to there. I'll break it down that far. Now what I'm doing, because it's wet, but also if it's not wet, if you run your paper towel or your Q-tip over it, and that way you can get all the grease, the grime, and everything out of it. So we're going to do that right now. Alright, so wrapping up cleaning the main components here of the reel where you got all the gears and your drag. So now that I got that pretty well cleaned up, next thing I've got to do is I've got to worry about the side plate for that, which has got water and dirt in it. So I'll just take a cotton ball here and clean that up real nice. Taking the Q-tip here, getting the sleeve here, get the water and the grease out of there and that gunk. Got a little piece of fuzz there. You can see it's pretty dirty in there. A lot of use out of this reel. So you can take the bearings out as well. What you would do is you take a pair of pliers, you take out those retaining pins. Careful, because they can fly all over the place, and you don't want that to happen. But usually there's not a lot of need, and although this was a little bit wet, it was just little drops. And if you oil those bearings pretty good, you really don't need to take them out all the time. Alright, so got everything pretty much dry. Now at this point usually you can start putting things back together and oil and grease them up. But I want to sit here and let this dry for about 30 minutes, make sure we get all the moisture out. Alright y'all, back here. So this thing's pretty well dry. So I'm just going to show you how I lube this thing up. Let's take a small drop and put it on the gears. And then a small drop and put it there on the other gear that turns the spool. And I'll just turn those things around and spin them to make sure they're lubed up nice and good. And that's pretty simple. You don't need a whole lot. One drop goes a long ways. Once you do that, you can start putting this thing back together. Again, I already did it. Camera wasn't on, but you can also take a drop of oil on this gear or this washer here and spread it around with your finger, or you can use a Q-tip to get a thin layer there. So then you drop the components back together, and the nice thing about it is that they line up perfectly. You got to put them on right, otherwise they're not going to go on. Alright, so got the side plate back, the plate back on, the gear plate. Everything seems to be spinning like it should, which is a good sign. Go ahead and drop Drop the rest of the components back on there on the washers. Everything seems to be working all right so far. The thing I want to do before we put on the reel and the side plate on is there's a little worm gear up in here. And I like to clean that up. Get that nice, all that gunk out of there. Now, then I'm also going to have to clean the outside of this reel because there's a lot of dirt on it, but go ahead and clean up that worm gear. You go ahead and turn your reel handle and it will turn that gear in there. And you can get that thing nice and clean after just turn every few little quarter turn, or just keep rubbing and turning at the same time. It's nice and oiled up. Alright, so the last thing to do is go ahead and put in the spool. Make sure it fits nice and good. I usually do that. I'll take it back out. I'll put a little dab of oil there on the shaft. Run it around with my fingers there, just like so. I'll slide that back into the reel. Make sure it seats nice and good. Then I'll put a little drop of oil on this bearing right here. Use my Q-tip to move it around. It should be good to go. Then I'll put the side plate back together. So the reel's back together. It seems to be performing as it should. It's clean, it's lubed up, it's got oil in there. Again, it was a relatively easy process. So this winter, make sure you're doing some maintenance on your reels. Again, all you really need to do is make sure to take out, clean all the gunk out, put some oil on there. You don't have to break them down too far. Like, I didn't go that far down to all of the minute components, but the big advice is make sure you got something to lay everything out on, whether it's a towel or a piece of scrap piece of wood. Make sure you have all your tools. Make sure you have your oil, your grease, your paper towels, your Q-tips all handy, so you can break it down all at once. You could be done in 20-30 minutes with the reel and put it back together, so you're not taking too long, you're not walking away forgetting how to reassemble everything. So hopefully this gives you some ideas how you can clean your reels, do some maintenance over the winter time. And again, appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit the like button, you subscribe, and we'll see you guys out there next time.